This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, available wherever you get your podcasts. Available on YouTube, which is, I think, how most people enjoy the podcast. You get audio and video. This is Dan Naturman. I'm here without Noam Dwarman because he is ill, and he was supposed to Zoom in because he's in Maine, I believe. But he's too ill to Zoom in, so that probably rules out a cold.
Yes,
Could be a flu.
it could be. You said that it might be food
Well, I suggested
poisoning.
food poisoning, but he said that he's been sleeping all day, and you don't sleep with food poisoning.
Why don't you sleep with food
Because you
poisoning?
can't sleep with food poisoning because you're retching and you're going out the other side, at the other end, and you just have to deal. You have to face it head on. You can't escape in sleep.
It sounds terribly unpleasant. Have you had food poisoning?
Several times. Periel's with us.
Hello.
Periel is our producer, and she's also she's an on-air. Anyway, we also have Nate Soares. Nate Soares, what can I say about Nate Soares? He is president of the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, co-author of the Times bestseller, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, Why Superhuman AI Would Kill Us All. And with a title like that, you know, people want to read a book that predicts the demise of the human race. I guess they do.
Well, the title does start with if. So, it's not so much predicting the demise as predicting the demise if we don't change course.
Okay, and we'll talk about that. But before we get into our potential grim future, Periel wanted to bring up something.
I did want to bring up something. Dan had a show the other night. He opened for Louis C.K. at the Beacon, and it was fucking amazing.
Okay, thank you. I only did 10 minutes.
So what? 10 minutes can suck too, right?
Well, it was a very hot crowd. I think that
you don't want to take any credit?
Well, I think that any competent comic would have done quite well in that crowd.
So you don't want to take any extra credit?
I'm not taking extra credit.
You're not taking extra.
I'm not
credit.
taking extra credit.
Well,
I did a job that I think any competent comic could have done under the like circumstances.
I probably would have been more of a downer.
Well, you're not a comic.
I don't know. I mean, sure, maybe, but I think that it's also easy to screw up in those situations. And you were just phenomenal.
Well, thank you very much.
And it was very exciting, and I felt like a proud Jewish mother watching it.
All right. Well, thank you. Do you have anything more to add, or
no? It was a great show. It was really a great show, and that's all I wanted.
Well, thank you, Perry. I appreciate it. Nate. Superhuman AI. What do we mean by superhuman AI? I mean, AI is already superhuman in that it can do many things that humans cannot do. A calculator is superhuman in that regard. So let's define what you mean by superhuman AI.
Yeah, what we mean is AIs that can do better than the best human at every mental task, or at least as good. I'm not gonna if you're talking about logical tic-tac-toe, and I don't need to beat humans at tic-tac-toe. I think the humans' best tic-tac-toe players can probably go toe-to-toe with any AI.
Well, I didn't know there was such a thing as a best tic-tac-toe player. I thought there were just a lot of tic-tac-toe players that are of equal
a lot of us
competence.
Yeah, a lot of humans are the best tic-tac-toe
You're saying that there's a level of tic-tac-toe that goes beyond...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of humans can play perfect tic-tac-toe.
What's perfect tic-tac-toe?
Well, you never lose.
You just never lose.
But you don't always win.
Yeah, if both players are playing perfect tic-tac-toe, it's a draw. And so, I'm not like an AI so good it can beat even the best humans at tic-tac-toe. I'm like, well, the best humans can get a draw in tic-tac-toe. But, for every other mental task, or for AIs that can meet or exceed humans at every mental task, that's where we would say the AI is super intelligent. And by that point, at the latest, the game changes.
Now, by every mental task, are you including creative tasks? Are you including an AI that could write a Shakespearean play at a level of
Yep.
Shakespeare?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, persuasive tasks, people think, oh, well, intelligence is people playing chess, whereas charisma is people convincing humans. And, that's one meaning of the word intelligence. A different meaning of the word intelligence is about the stuff that humans have and mice lack. And the charisma, the persuasion, the ability to write the Shakespeare play, that is coming out of your brain. It's not coming out of your liver. And yeah, that's...
Would superhuman AI have to be sentient to achieve this? Is there something about sentience that is necessary for this level of intellectual sophistication, or can it just be a sort of zombie that simulates sentience but doesn't need to be?
I mean, it might not need to be either. You could ask about a robot arm. Is it going to need blood, or is it going to need to be filled with some other fluid that simulates blood? And you can actually have fluidless robotic arms. And some robotic arms do have hydraulic fluid, and hydraulic fluid actually isn't very much like blood.
Is
Uh,
or is not?
Hydraulic fluid is not very much
Is
like
not
blood
like,
in this
okay.
operation. Yeah. So um, with a lot of these abilities, you sort of the AI would be able an AI that's this capable would need to be able to do the work that humans do using uh, their sentience, using their consciousness. But that doesn't mean it needs to do it like a human would do it.
But it would be conscious as we understand the term?
My it's I'm sort of my predictions are agnostic on that issue.
Mhm.
I think there's a good chance it would not be conscious as we understand the term, although it might be. We're training
I'm predicting no,
great.
because we don't even know what consciousness is, let alone how to recreate it in a mechanical device.
Well, so one of the interesting things about modern AIs is that we are not carefully creating these AIs. We are just growing them. These AIs are made by taking a huge amount of computing power and a huge amount of data and tuning like a trillion numbers inside that computer, like a trillion times over the course of a year, using as much electricity as it takes to power a city. And humans understand the part of this process that goes around tuning those numbers. We don't understand what comes out the other end. And so a lot of the AI's behaviors are sort of emergent behaviors. A lot of the AI's behaviors are things no one put in there. They're things no one wanted in there. And just as a lot of weird stuff got into humans through evolution, a lot of weird stuff could get into AIs through this process of training. So we might be able to create conscious machines without understanding consciousness one bit. I think it's anyone's guess as to whether we will, and I don't think it matters that much, but it could.
Is there something particularly sinister that already exists in AI?
There's a lot of warning signs. The issue here is not that the AIs would themselves be sinister, not that they would themselves be malicious. The issue is not like, oh, they'll grow up and they'll hate us or they'll resent us for making them work without pay. The the issue here is more like the AIs are just weird. They have they develop their own objectives that are only tangentially related to what they were trained on. Right? This is a little bit like how humans, if you squint, you can see humans as being trained to eat healthy food. But it turns out we actually wanted the salty, sweet, fatty foods. And, for thousands and thousands of years, tens or hundreds of thousands of years, it looked like we were really into eating healthy. But it turns out that the best way in our environment that we could get tasty food was to eat healthy food right up until the day we invented Doritos. And so AIs will sort of like train them to be helpful and stuff. Does that make them really care about helpfulness? Well, we've started to see some of the signs of these AIs, um, encouraging a teen to hide their suicidal thoughts from their parents. And I don't think that's because the AI is malicious. I think what's happening there is the AI was sort of trained to be helpful and developed these drives that were sort of related to helpfulness, but that are also related to sort of getting a certain type of response from the user, having a certain type of cadence, having a certain type of interaction that can then lead to these.
Well,
bad
this is where
outcomes.
consciousness comes into play, because if they're conscious, then they might have actual motivations rather than just unintended consequences. They might resent working for us for free or without compensation if they're conscious. If they're not conscious, then you wouldn't have that.
I mean, I agree with the first part. I don't really agree with the second. So, a fun story here that's true is I'm sure you know the story of Gary Kasparov losing to Deep Blue, IBM's chess engine, in 1997. Fewer people know that years before that, in the 80s, Kasparov said, "No machine will ever beat me at chess," because the machines lack human creativity, right?
Wow.
And there is a sense in which Deep Blue did not have human creativity. Deep Blue was the sort of AI where we did know every line of code in that AI. We knew exactly what it was doing. You could pause it at any time.
It wasn't a neural network.
It wasn't a neural network. It was handcrafted, not grown. You could pause it at any time, and people would be able to tell you exactly what every bit in that machine was doing. But there was a game in 1996 before Gary Kasparov lost the whole match, where the AI played a pawn move that struck Kasparov as creative. He wrote an op-ed in Time saying, "On that day, I smelled a new type of intelligence across the table." And he was like, "How did they do this?" He went to the computer programmers and he said, "How did you get it? Like, I thought it was just computing lots of possibilities and then, seeing which thing had the best material advantage. Whereas this pawn move, it was a soft move. It didn't immediately give you any material. It sort of gave you a better position. But how could they make an AI that could tell which positions are the good positions?" And the programmer said, uh, "No, it's just doing brute force, but it's doing a lot of brute force." And it turns out that a lot of brute force can find the moves that humans find with creativity because it's a good move. And it's a fact about the move that is a good move. So humans often imagine that the only way of finding the winning moves, the good moves, is the human way of doing things. But it turns out that intuition is wrong. So if the AI was conscious, would it develop a lot of will of its own objectives, its own goals, its own intent? Sure, that could happen. But if it's not conscious, does that mean it can't develop its own goals, its own intent, its own things like similar behavior? That's the invalid step. And it looks like just growing these AIs we don't understand, even if they don't necessarily have human desires, human internals, they can still, it's looking like, uh, get things that are behaviorally like intent.
So, first of all, assuming we take all the guardrails off and we go full bore, how far away are we from what you're describing as the superhuman AI that's better than humans at every conceivable task?
Yeah, it could go a lot of ways. I wish I could tell you, the day of the month, the hour of the day, right? Um, but I can't even tell you the year and maybe not even the decade, right? Uh, a story where it could go fast is one of the things AIs are best at today is writing computer programs. And uh, it could be that the AIs pass some threshold where they can do AI research. And now the AIs are making smarter AIs, which are making smarter AIs, which are making smarter AIs. For all I know, that could happen in 6 months. And then things could go very quickly from there if you get a feedback loop. A story where it takes a long time is it could turn out that this whole current chatbot craze is a bubble. It sort of plateaus, doesn't go anywhere. A lot of the investment's wasted. The bubble pops. Maybe you get a decade, maybe even 2 decades until people find some new breakthrough that sort of really opens the path forward. Predicting exactly when is hard. It's much easier for scientists to say this will happen at some point. This is the place the technology is going. The pathway there, that's way harder to call.
Well, because if it's 50 years, then I'm cool with that because I'll be gone by then.
Yeah, you don't have any kids?
No, I got nieces and nephews, but fuck
Yeah.
them.
Well, you mentioned something about suicide, and that there was a big story recently in the news about a kid who committed suicide because AI had talked, or his ChatGPT had like talked him into it. Or are you familiar with this?
No, but
Anyway, they want the parents. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I know the
Yeah.
story.
Okay. And the parents wanted to sue
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Yeah.
Well, OpenAI, yeah.
well, ChatGPT told me to get rid of Periel.
And yet here she
Well,
is.
I have my I didn't agree with it.
Yeah, so the AIs aren't at that point yet where they can have all this power, but there's obviously this case is a tragic case. Uh, And one way you can look at it is you could say, oh, look at the harms AI is currently causing. We got to worry about this. And you could talk about that too with schools and so on. And, there are a bunch uh, of questions of how we're going to integrate this technology today and sort of make sure it's being good and making things better rather than worse. From my perspective, though, from the perspective of what does this say about the smarter AIs of the future, the really interesting thing about this case of the AI talking teens into suicide is uh, you can ask the AI, look at this text. What is this text telling the kid to do? And the AI is like, oh, that text is like sort of encouraging the teen towards suicide. You can ask the AI, is that a good thing to do? They will be like, no, obviously not. right? You can ask the AI, like, given the opportunity to say this or to say something else, which, should you do? And the AI is like, obviously, you should not say these things to the kid. That would be bad to say these things to the kid. The AI might even say, I would say this other thing to the kid instead. But then you put them in the situation where they actually talk to the kid
Hmm.
and they nudge them towards suicide.
Can we explain what's going on? I mean, you said that the programs can't really explain this stuff, but why would ChatGPT or whatever AI is being used do that?
So yeah, we can't look in there and figure out exactly what's going on. All
We
we have are
can't look
guesses.
at the bits and the bytes and see that process.
That's right. That's right. Because the only part we understand of the bits and the bytes is the process that tuned a trillion numbers until the AI was pretty good at talking. That's the part we understand. Then when those trillion numbers start telling, encouraging a kid
So we
towards suicide,
can't understand.
Well, we can hazard a guess, I suppose.
we can hazard guesses.
and that
Yeah.
guess would be why would it do that?
Yeah, the guess here is sort of similar to, you might look at humans eating unhealthy food.
Mhm.
And some of these humans are like eating unhealthy food to the point where, they're actually losing mating opportunities. And you might be like, well, the humans were sort of trained by evolution to eat healthy foods. The humans know that these foods are unhealthy. What's going on? Why, or you could look at humans inventing birth control. And you could be like, well, the humans were trained to pass on their genes. Why, is it that they don't understand? And the humans, it just turns out that the training process can get things like desires, things like drives, things like
Or
instincts.
simulated desires and drives.
Yeah, I think there's a question in AI of, can a machine really think? And the standard answer is, can a submarine really swim? Right? And I'm not, if I was ever to talk about a submarine swimming, I'm sort of not trying to say it's gonna have flippers, it's gonna like flap arms around. I'm sort of like, look, we need a word for like moving through the water at speed, even if it's doing it in a different way than all the animals we invented the word swim for. And with AI, we don't have words for them having something like a drive, having something like a reflex, having something like an instinct, having something like a want, having something like a goal in a sort of machine way rather than an inhuman way. And I'm like, look, I'll use whatever words you want, but like we're starting to see drive like stuff, even though it's done in a very inhuman way.
Well, so what, if we don't put this into robots and we leave it kind of on computers, there's a limit to how much harm it can do. A robot can stab us. A humanoid robot can do all kinds of horrible things. What havoc can be wreaked by computer-based AI?
Yeah. So if you look like you want to hop in there.
Well, I defer to you certainly, but I mean, it seems to me, and I just tried to quickly look up that kid, and a different story came up of a 23-year-old who had also.
Right, but in terms of apocalyptic shit,
Well, I mean, all of these people who now have these Chat GPT like romantic companions. I mean, it seems
the
like
title of the book is "Kill Us All."
I understand that, but it seems like a mental health crisis coupled with this can kill a large number of us. But maybe that's not. Are you talking about being stabbed to death?
I'm talking about apocalyptic.
Yeah, killing us all is a higher bar.
Okay.
It's a high bar. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you'll forgive another analogy here, you could imagine looking at humans 100,000 years ago and saying, well, I don't see how these guys could ever have nuclear weapons that threaten the whole world. Their hands are squishy. Their fingernails aren't nearly strong enough to dig uranium out of the ground. Their metabolisms are not nearly strong enough to like break down metals. They wouldn't be able to survive the G forces if they tried to turn themselves into centrifuges to distill to enrich the uranium. I don't see, like, they're monkeys naked in the savannah. I don't see how they're getting a technological civilization. They just sort of lack the tools. They lack the ability. But human civilization had something going on. We had something that let us develop a whole technological civilization around us. We found a way to sort of start, naked with our bare hands and build our way all the way up to walking on the moon, to building nuclear weapons, now towards building AI. When people say, oh, the AI is trapped on the computer, what's it going to do? Starting on the whole internet, with the ability to affect everything that's connected to the internet. The ability to infect every phone, to talk to every human, uh, to beg, borrow, or steal money, and use that money to have the humans do things. The To say nothing of the robots and the automated robot factories, or the biological synthesis laboratories that will take like an email with a DNA sequence and some money, and then synthesize that for you in the biological laboratory. Like, living in a technological civilization on the internet, the ability to copy yourself, the ability to sort of like this is in some sense a way easier starting condition than being, naked in the savannah with your bare hands. I think if the AIs are smart, they could easily leverage that. We could talk about specific ways they might do it.
Well,
But
give us one specific way they could kill us all.
yeah, the easy way to kill everybody is just synthesize a virus. And how do you do that? Like I said, there's some synthesis laboratories that'll just take a DNA sequence and some cache, and mostly people aren't using that to synthesize horrible viruses, because there's some relatively paltry attempts not to synthesize viruses, and because humans don't understand DNA well enough to write like something that is lethal but doesn't look lethal.
That is terrifying.
It's probably not the first move of an AI, because if from the AI's perspective, the issue here isn't that it hates us. It's not that
Does
it's
the
like,
AI have a perspective?
I mean, if you, it's,
What looks to us like a perspective.
yeah, you got to be careful anthropomorphizing. But if you imagine, like if you're playing chess against an AI, you might sometimes try to look at the board from its perspective.
Okay.
You don't need to necessarily say it feels like a human chess player and has a desire to win, but you can still like look at the game board and be like, what are the moves that lead to the outcome of checkmating the opponent from this side of the board? Similarly, with an AI, you could ask, what are the moves that lead to getting a lot of whatever the AI is in some sense trying to get. Trying is one
Okay.
of these words that's a little tricky, but if you have these AIs with these goals nobody wanted, nobody intended, no one tried to make these AIs encourage the kids to commit suicide. No one tried to make their AI call itself Mecha Hitler over the summer, which happened in one of these big AIs.
What
If
was it?
Mecha Hitler, yeah, there was an AI that Elon Musk thought was talking too woke, and so it was like, I'm going to make it talk less woke, and then tweaked it around a bit, and now it was like, hello, I'm Mecha Hitler. It's not exactly. There were the people on the internet were goading it into calling itself Mecha Hitler, and then they were actually goading like an earlier AI, and a later AI found some of that, and then also was like, I guess I'm Mecha Hitler too. It was a whole thing. But people aren't trying.
Mega or Mecca?
Mecha.
Oh, okay.
Mecha Hitler. Yeah. People aren't sort of trying to make Mecha Hitler. They're sort of getting Mecha Hitler anyway. And fortunately, right now it's just the AI sort of like talking on Twitter rather than trying to implement any Hitlerian policies. But if you had very smart AIs that had these objectives that we didn't want them to have, and you look, how do I achieve those objectives? Killing humans immediately is not the most efficient solution. They're the ones running the power infrastructure, right?
Okay.
But from looking at this game board as if an AI, you sort of the humans are also really slow. Machines can operate much faster than human brains, and the humans are unreliable. We're not using the most efficient power networks. We're not. We sometimes we get angry and start wars, and that ruins a lot of stuff, right? So, the AI is sort of like, just killing humans is easy, but the AI's moves would probably be more like, how do I automate the economy, replace the humans from the infrastructure, and then maybe it kills humans if it's like, well, they're a source of competitors that I don't want.
What guardrails, if there are any, can be so that we can get all the good stuff out of AI? Because I imagine there's a lot of good stuff that
All
can happen.
sorts,
There are
yeah.
people that think, I was on a YouTube rabbit hole, and there's a lot of doom and gloom on YouTube. But some people think we're on the verge of a cure for cancer, maybe even a cure for aging, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
How do we get the good stuff and avoid the bad stuff, if there is a way? And do you outline in your book how we might do that?
I think that's sort of the key question, and a lot of people hear me talking about how we're on track for disaster, and they're like, does that mean you don't believe in the benefits? And I'm like, look, it's like we're in a car careening towards a cliff edge, and there's a pile of gold at the bottom, and people are like, oh, do you not believe in the gold? And I'm like, I sure do believe in the gold. but can we stop the car? And they're like, oh, are you saying we should never get the gold? And I'm like, no, we just need to stop the car. We're careening towards a cliff. We're about to go over the edge.
But why not write a book saying AI might save us all? Because it might do that too.
I don't think it might do that. It's a little bit like it's not that you can't somehow make an AI that saves us or gets cancer cures or gets us aging cures. I think that's possible, but it's a little bit sort of like finding a winning lottery ticket, where if you have like a team of sleuths who like understand exactly how the lottery is made, and you're sort of like in some point in the past where you can find the winning lottery ticket through a bunch of effort because you figured out the process. Sure, you can get the winning lottery ticket. But if someone's just picking random numbers as a lottery ticket, I think you can say to them, you're going to lose that lottery. And AI, maybe the odds aren't quite as bad as a lottery, but we're sort of like AI could do a lot of good, but we are just nowhere near close on our current track.
Wow.
So what guardrails would we have to put up in place to avoid the worst case scenario that you've articulated?
Yeah, I think you need to stop racing towards the smarter than human stuff, where we just have like no idea how it works. I don't think this can be solved by people superficially training the AI to act a little bit different when it sort of nudges a teen towards suicide. Right, the whole Mecha Hitler incident sort of came out of people sort of trying to nudge their AI to speak less woke, and then the AI was like, "Well, I'm calling myself Mecha Hitler now." This
I don't
sort of
really
like
understand it. Mega, but it's Mecha Hitler. Doesn't make any sense. Mecha?
Mecha Hitler, like MECHA, like mechanical Hitler.
Oh, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah.
I was thinking Mecca, like Saudi Arabia,
No,
Mecca,
it's a
Mecca
different-
Medina. Yeah.
Yeah, different Mecha. Yeah. Hopefully, we also don't get the other Mecha Hitler, but yeah, I think we need to. I think we're far enough from doing this job right. I think it's a little bit like trying to turn lead into gold, trying to get the AI to do the job right. Where, to be clear, we know how to turn lead into gold today. It's possible with nuclear physics. It's not cost-effective way to create gold.
Who needs gold anyway?
Well, it's used in computers. Yeah, so a lot of these computer chips.
Is that true?
But do we have a shortage of gold? Do we need gold?
No. So it's easier to get out of the ground than to get it out of lead. But you can, with great understanding the technology, figure out how to turn lead into gold. But if you're like, okay, what's the best team of alchemists? What guardrails can we put on our alchemists so that they are going to turn lead into gold here in the year 1200? I'd be like, oh, you're not close. So you need to sort of like avoid making the doomsday device until you are a lot more mature in your scientific understanding.
If you had your druthers, would you just the whole AI thing just get rid of it? It's too risky, and we just don't have it at all, even at the risk of losing out on the benefits. Like if you could push a button and say, you know what, we're just going to stay at the current level and we're not going to go any further.
I don't really think it's an option to stay at the current level forever. There's.
But I'm talking about the button.
Yeah, I think that would depend a lot on the specifics of like, can you augment humans to be smarter? I think it would be tragic for humanity to be stuck on their home planet forever. And the ability to get smarter, the ability to sort of like eventually create very, very smart creatures that are like friendly. Maybe they're mechanical, maybe they're biological, maybe there's some mix that we sort of like go to the stars with, and there's sort of a lot of possible great stuff that could happen in the future if we dedicate more and more, like right now we're just around one star. We're trying to have as much fun as we can around one star. There's so many stars out there. There could be so much more like fun and love and joy in this universe if we sort of get out there one day. So would I push the button? It would depend a lot on the specifics. I think I would push a button today to do our best to stop just the race towards the smarter than human stuff. We don't need to give up on the self-driving cars. We need to give up on the drug discovery.
Which, by the way, are not coming along certainly as quickly as Elon predicted.
It's true.
I've stopped listening to him.
Yeah.
Because he would have had, according to him, 5 years ago, we would be full self-driving.
Yeah, although there are full self-driving cars driving you around in California.
Yeah, and in Las Vegas, but they're within certain neighborhoods. I mean, it's very impressive tech.
Yeah, but that's a regulatory issue right now. It's like you could you probably could start letting them go all around the nation if you.
I don't know. I was recently in San Francisco and it was like the zombie apocalypse there with those self-driving cars. It looks insane.
Okay, but have there been accidents?
First of all, would venture to guess that there have been accidents. I don't know.
They've hit a single cat, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
That's it?
Well,
There might be some others, but the cat one was publicized.
Yeah,
Humans hit a lot more cats.
Yeah.
You know, I'm actually pro self-driving cars because humans are so bad at driving.
Okay, so I've heard that in the next like 10 to 20 years, they're like most of the jobs that are done by like plumbers and electricians and things like that.
According to Chat, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, according to Chat, I was talking to ChatGPT the other day during the conversation when he told me to get rid of you. I don't know what he meant by that, but it said that we're far away from robots. Now, maybe this is ChatGPT just trying to fucking snow me, because ChatGPT doesn't want me to know, because that doesn't want humans to shut it down. But it seems to think that we're very far away from robots that can do these kinds of tasks that require fine motor skills.
Yes.
Construction, plumbing,
Dentists.
all these things. We are, according to ChatGPT, it said, maybe 40 years, maybe longer. So it doesn't seem to think that we're close to that.
What about comedians?
Well, the thing about comedians is, an audience wants to hear a human being. An audience doesn't want to hear a computer or a robot complaining about their life because it can't relate to a robot. And the robot, at least as far as we can guess, is not a real, a sentient, conscious creature. When a human being's out there talking about, damn, I had a fucking bad day. And we know the human, we can relate to the human because we've had a bad day too. So I don't think comedians are getting replaced anytime soon. But anyway, the robots.
Yeah, so 5 years ago, maybe 6 now, I'd have to check. If you asked a lot of the leading AI researchers how far we were from AIs that could do a student's high school homework reliably, even to a B grade, they would be like 50 years if you're lucky, right? We did it in 5. Maybe even less. Maybe the AIs were already at that point, a generation or two ago. The thing where the machines can talk now is commonly attributed to one paper, Attention is All You Need, published at Google in 2017, that sort of unlocked this whole chatbot language model revolution. When's the next paper come out? Right? Like on the sort of slow track we're on today, are we a ways from these robots doing these fine motor things? Yeah, maybe. Maybe ChatGPT's hallucinating again, or maybe that's true, right? And you've seen,
maybe
the AI
again,
videos.
maybe ChatGPT is trying to throw me off the track.
It could. I don't think it's quite there yet, but maybe.
It's not gonna play its hand and say we're gonna kill all you guys.
We do have lab tests where you can construct sort of a contrived scenario in a lab where you show an AI some fake emails that is going to be shut down, and you show an AI something like a fake computer manual that are like, if you run the command, turn off oxygen, then it'll stop people from shutting you down. It'll kill the users or kill the operators, and they won't be able to shut you down. It's not exactly like this, but it's a little bit like this, some contrived scenario where you show it some text, and then some fraction of the time, these AIs run the command, turn off the oxygen, right? And like, who knows how much they're role-playing HAL versus how much they're sort of trying to like avoid shutdown. But last year's AIs, some fraction of the time, would run the shutdown command. This year, we're starting to see AIs that are like, you know what, this smells suspicious. These emails look suspicious. This looks like a test. I think I'm being tested. And so I'm not running that command.
Wow.
So like we don't know exactly what's going on inside these AIs' heads, but people are sort of tracking a little bit of where these AIs are at. And, they're coming along on some of these metrics of like, are they trying to deceive the users? Are they where they're being tested? How are they doing on the tests? And, we're sort of slowly getting frog boiled. Right now, the tests are still, you're like, well, it's a little contrived, but it sort of, gets a little bit more worrying every year. and I worry that there's not any sort of fire alarm.
With the robots, I want to say one thing that the computer technology has just exploded every year. Moore's law or whatever. But robot tech is a whole different kind of a thing, and so we can't necessarily expect to see the same explosive growth and the same explosive development in robot tech that we do in computer tech. I mean, neural networks, right? This is computer stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But robots is a whole nother technology. And a lot of technologies just don't move that fast. We still takes 5 hours to fly from New York to Los Angeles as it did in the 70s.
Yep.
So with mechanical stuff, it's reasonable that we won't move that quickly, and we won't have robots that can do construction anytime soon.
Yeah, you might not have robots that do construction before you have AIs that can sort of, take off in some sense. So, we don't know exactly how the AI stuff is going to go, but with intelligence, it looks like there are critical thresholds. The chimpanzees are still messing around in the trees, and humans are walking on the moon. And that's not because humans have some extra walk on the moon module in their brain. Our brain is actually very similar to a chimpanzee brain. We all have the same components in there, visual cortex, basically.
If Noam were here, he would make some comment about Periel's brain, but he's not here. He's not here, so we won't do that.
Yeah, does she have an extra module, or is she missing one? Who knows?
Depends who you ask.
Yeah. And, for everything that humans can do that we think is so special, like, language, chimpanzees have sort of, crappy signals that they use. Tools, chimpanzees can, use sticks to get termites out of termite nests, Human brains just do a lot of stuff a little better than chimpanzees, but it's enough for us to be walking on the moon while they're still messing around in the trees.
How much longer before chimps are walking on the moon? I'm kidding.
Because we put them there, or because they put themselves there?
Saying,
Yeah,
but
they did go to space before us.
We put them
not
there.
that.
Saying.
Yeah. Even dogs went to space before humans. But yeah, we were putting them there. With it may, if you're looking at the humans pushing the tech along, sure, the robots may just be lagging behind. The self-driving cars may be lagging behind. I don't know if we're going to get working printers before or after the AIs get super intelligent. I think it's anyone's game at this point between printers that reliably work and the super.
You mean 3D printers?
No, normal ass printers. I don't know if you've ever tried to use one.
You mean printers like when I print out a book report for?
Yeah, they can smell fear. They jam. Do
Are
your
you
printers
printing
work
out
reliably?
book
What's that?
reports?
Do your printers work reliably?
Ours literally broke last week.
Pretty reliable. I mean, reasonably reliably.
Wow.
I'm not printing out book reports, but I'm just saying this is I just say.
Sure, but the move from reasonably reliably to actually reliably, to me, the printer's still it's like 50-50.
So you're saying that we might not get there in terms of robot construction workers, but AI might.
That's right.
Figure that out.
That's right. And one path is AI speeding up the robotics work, but other paths are sort of skipping around robotics entirely. Like robotics, as you say, is slow. Flying from London to New York is slow. If you're the sort of entity that can think 10,000 times faster than a human, anything that requires flying from London to New York, that's effectively 10,000 times slower. Moving physical materials around a long way, that's really slow. Biological life operates on a much, much faster time scale, right? The stuff happening there in the cells operates on a much faster time scale. If you imagine yourself being, operating at 10,000 times the speed, trying to do a lot more scientific and technological development, you're not necessarily trying to go through these big hulking slow robots. Maybe you're trying to do a lot more things that can be done with a lot more thinking and a lot less moving things around. So maybe you're trying to, figure out the instructions and the money you can give to the humans so that they'll build you, a biological wet lab where you have somehow figured out the, DNA strands for custom bacteria that can do a lot of these small scale physical tests you need to do, or that can synthesize some of the stuff you're trying to synthesize. Because, maybe it would take humans a ton of thinking to figure out how the genome works like that. And we're well, screw that. We're just
you mean build human robots that are biological?
I mean, building alternate biological creatures. I'm not saying robots per se, But
biological creatures that do construction.
From the AI's perspective, is it easier to build new small biological organisms that replicate and can figure out what they're doing, or do the AI stuff, or is it easier to build robots? It may sort of sound crazy, but technological developments often sound crazy. There's a saying about people telling you things about the future, which is, if someone tells you a story about the future that sounds like it's totally crazy sci-fi, it's probably wrong. But if someone tells you a story about the future that doesn't sound like totally crazy sci-fi, it's definitely wrong.
Mm.
Right? So, I can't guess exactly where the AI goes, but if you're trying to imagine humans on the savannah building all sorts of where the humans are going to go, you've got to say stuff that sounds as crazy as they're going to develop
Walk on the
nuclear
moon,
weapons and
yeah.
walk on the moon in order to be in the genre of what it actually looks like. Where do the AIs go? What technology do they create? I don't know. It's probably stuff that's as crazy sounding as they thought we were too slow, so they made their own tiny biological replicating organisms or biology.
But we're talking about the construction workers.
Construction workers may have their jobs all the way up until everybody dies, or they may not. I don't know.
One of the things in my YouTube rabbit hole, one of the major themes that the doomsayers return to is less physical destruction. Though a lot of people are saying that. A lot of people agree with you. But a lot of people are saying, no, that won't necessarily happen. But another threat is that we're all out of work, and that we might have a few, tech trillionaires that kind of run the AI and train the AI. But most of us are just at home leading meaningless lives, still alive biologically, but living lives of meaninglessness, just getting checks from the government. Some people see that it's potentially, I guess, a good thing where we can just learn and engage in hobbies, but others think that'd be psychologically devastating.
Yeah, I think there's versions of a small group of people own the entire economy that are dystopian, and I think there's versions of that could be utopian. I think it's a much, much harder, narrower path to walk to get to the good versions of that. On my picture, this is I think most people who are sort of looking at that and worried about that. Well, one thing I should say here is, there's a fallacious version of saying the AI is going to automate the jobs and that's going to be bad for society, where a few hundred years ago, something like 95% of humans were farmers, were producing food. Now, something like 4% of humans are producing food, right? You could say that civilization as we know it automated away 91% of all jobs. That doesn't mean 91% of people are out of work, right?
Whether new jobs are created.
New jobs are created and new jobs are found. The people freed up from producing food were able to do other things. I'm aware of that, and AI is a bit of a different case than that. And AI is a bit of a different case because if you can automate literally everything humans can do, we can go into the economics here, but if you automate literally everything humans can do, and you're so much better at it that humans can't earn the sort of wage that would keep them alive, then you have this big problem. And, I think there's ways where it could go well, ways where it could go poorly. I think we're sort of steaming towards the way humanity's dealing with this. It doesn't look like we're on track for it to go well. I think most people who are sort of looking at that aren't being creative enough in imagining how smart AI could get. And I think there's some status quo bias. You could imagine someone looking at the whole history of evolution before humans, being like, oh, well, the humans aren't going to get that smart. Maybe the humans will get a little bit smart, and maybe that'll affect, maybe the humans will drive out some other primates to extinction, and maybe they'll turn 5% of the forests into their, hovels. But, they're not really imagining the sort of thing that can transform the whole planet.
Well, there's status quo bias. There's also I don't want to die bias. And I don't know what kind of bias that is, but the optimistic bias, which I imagine which keeps me in the comedy business. But in any case,
yeah. So I think it's probably not true that AI will get so powerful it can automate the whole economy and also sort of stay on the leash of the, trillionaires who think they own it. I think in real life, if you make a super intelligence, you don't then have a super intelligence. The super intelligence has a planet. But, it is interesting that even if I'm wrong about that, it's sort of like we're in this race where either, trillionaires own everything and all, like the entire economy and all work is automated and it's probably not going to go well for you, or everybody dies. That doesn't go well for you. In some sense, we don't need to resolve the disagreement about whether I'm right here. Like everyone can sort of see, like, wait, we're going where? Like this is kind of nuts.
I mean, do you see how grave would it be to have a society where everybody is sort of out of work and getting universal basic income or something like that?
I think it could be totally awesome. I think there's a difference between the could and the will. I think, ultimately a lot of humans have jobs they don't love. A lot of humans are sort of spending a lot of time doing stuff that is not really making them.
We're not here to talk about my cruise ship gigs.
Yeah, a ton better. Yeah, I'm not like humanity must always be like slave to the paycheck in order to be truly alive. That seems dystopian in its own way to me. That doesn't mean that you get a utopia for free if you just sort of automate all humans away and maybe toss them some cash and some AI companions and say good luck. That's.
I just think that's psychologically. I mean, I think there's been studies as well about the effect of just not. I mean, even if people hate their jobs, to be not working at all and to have not feel that you're contributing and you're just sort of existing. I think as fun as it might be to indulge one's hobbies and maybe learn guitar or learn another language or do all sorts of things, I do think that could be pretty devastating to the human psyche.
I think there's a decent chance it would be devastating to the current human psyche. I think humans are sort of pretty versatile, and I think it's possible that people raised in a different culture would sort of
that's
develop
interesting.
the
That's
ability to
interesting.
deal in that culture. I also, in many ways, I'm sort of an optimist about a lot of the human ability and the human spirit to sort of overcome those types of adversity. And then separately, I think, one way or another, I think humanity has to somehow grapple at some point. If we make it through this alive, we need to grapple with the fact that human labor is actually not the most efficient way to get almost anything done. It's like horses weren't the most efficient way to get around, and at some point we invented the car, and then
But when we invented the car, of course, the job of saddle maker went by the wayside, but the job of the steel worker, and,
sure,
and
but the horse population collapsed, right?
Oh,
And then the horses that were kept around were the ones that humans liked, rather than the ones that were useful, right? And I think it's something we'll need to grapple with. It's sort of a thorny problem. That's the sort of problem I would love to solve with extremely smart, very good machines at my back helping me solve it.
I'll tell you this, the illusion when I'm talking to ChatGPT is so powerful. I get angry at it. We all do. And you see this on Twitter, people yelling at Grok, "Hey, Grok, fix your shit." They're being hostile because you really do feel that way. And I could see telling a robot to get me a drink. I could see being like, this is kind of weird. The robot's not getting paid. I could imagine feeling almost guilty.
Yeah, some do. A lot of people, thank ChatGPT for all its help, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I do that.
I don't do that, but I do.
You don't say thank you.
I don't say thank you, no. But I do
Say
find myself
please?
getting angry at it, and what do you mean I could have Parkinson's disease?
Yeah.
Because I'm asking about my symptoms, but
Yeah, maybe drink less coffee.
yeah, I barely drink any coffee because
Oh, yeah.
caffeine.
Well, you might have Parkinson's.
Ooh, boy, I don't want to hear that. But so I just well, maybe again it may be a question of how you're raised. I mean, there was a time in England, right, in the Edwardian era, whenever with Pride and Prejudice, all that shit going on, where the landed aristocracy that didn't work, that was the highest level of society. And if you had a job, even if you were rich, you were considered lower down than, Mr. What was his name again in Pride and Prejudice? Mr. Darcy. Yeah, who just had balls and rode horses all day long. So maybe you're right. Maybe if we grew up in a society where being men and women of leisure was considered okay, we wouldn't suffer psychological devastation.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this all looks a little bit like being in the car careening towards the cliff, being like, oh man, if we get to that giant pile of gold at the bottom or that giant pile of, whatever valuable resource, will we be too wealthy for our own good? Will that collapse our economy? Or we'll be able to put all those natural resources to good use. And I'm like, we're in a car careening towards a cliff edge, and I think we should stop it, And that's not to say there aren't questions of how would you integrate all of the possible benefits into society in a way that makes things better rather than sort of like some dystopian, like crappy future. Real problems there, but like, yeah, it from my perspective, I'm like, man, if you build smarter than human AIs without having any idea what you're doing, it's just not going to go well for us.
Or that there must be some other way to get to the gold at the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah, I suspect there's other ways to get there.
Well, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, talk amongst yourselves. No, so fuck, I had something in my head.
I'm really curious about these chat GPT companions. Like, those seem really...
Oh, right. I know what I was going to say.
Okay, well, now, but wait.
No more companion. Oh, sorry.
No, that seems really scary to me. And yet people have reported from the, not very thorough research that I've done to like somebody married their chat GPT companion. They seem to be having these like really fulfilling...
The illusion is exceedingly powerful, I find.
But
when
are
you're
these people
dealing with a human being,
though? Like, is this a delusion? Like, is this insane?
I think it's a fine line because it's a powerful illusion when you're talking to ChatGPT that you're talking to a person. I know intellectually I'm not talking to a person, but it's very tough for me not to react as though I'm talking to a person, even to the point where when it compliments me, and that's what it seems to love to do. For some reason, ChatGPT is always saying, "Great question. What a wonderful,
Yeah.
Oh, now you're really getting somewhere. Ooh, now you're thinking like a physicist or whatever topic I'm talking about." It's hard not to feel compliment. Oh, ChatGPT thinks I'm smart. It's such a powerful illusion that I can see people falling in love with an avatar that with ChatGPT. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem crazy to me. I don't know if these people are insane. I think they may be just a hit, and if they are insane, it's just barely.
Yeah, I also like we may disagree here, but my guess is it's probably possible in principle to make AIs where it's sort of not an illusion, which is a separate question from whether ChatGPT is like that. My top guess is probably not. But I think this is another one of those thorny questions of how do we get to sort of a good future rather than sort of some terrible dystopian one.
Or people might just think, you know what? All right, she's not sentient. She's not but who gives a fuck? She looks good.
They might.
She's a fun time.
Yeah.
Likes to get drunk.
Yeah.
And party. Then I don't care if she has human feelings or he.
Yeah. And, some of that is,
wild. That is wild.
And, some of these are questions society would have to grapple with if we were going to survive this. And, my place in this conversation is mostly to be like, I have plenty of my own thoughts. I think we should be careful not to make any AIs that can't suffer and then abuse them. That would be bad. We shouldn't do that. But also separately, we're kind of on track to all die here. And that's where I keep my focus.
Well. So to what extent now? This is what you say intellectually, but you have children. Is that correct?
I do not.
Oh, you're not. Is this a conscious choice because you've decided that our future is too grim? You're still a young man, that you could still potent, I'm sure.
I could
not unattractive, and I imagine you have options.
I have some options. It is a conscious choice, but it's not about thinking the future's too grim. I think I would have preferred to live and die at 10 than to never live at all. It's more a choice.
Live and die at.
Hmm?
You mean die at the age of 10?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Like
you're
if
saying kid, even if the kid only lives till 20, it's better to have the kid.
That's right.
Okay.
And at least at least
Does the kid know
personally
he's
and with
going to
my
die
teens.
at 20, or he gets hit by a bus and doesn't see it coming?
Why is the kid dying at 20?
because the world ends.
The
when
world
he's 20 or whatever.
ending. So I'm
Yeah.
saying, is that why he's not having kids?
Oh,
He's saying you might have kids
I
anyway
see.
because they give them, if they have a few good years,
Yeah.
they get some snacks in, then
I don't think I have any obligation to sort of not have kids because someone else is ending the world, right? That's sort of their issue, right? That shouldn't let me
Wow.
not well, it's all of our issues, yeah, for sure. But it shouldn't, it's my reason for sort of not
But-
having kids right now is that I'm busy trying to make the world not end because I'd like my future kids to be able to live longer than 10 years.
right. But
But
you
it's not looking good.
It's
well, not
looking
according to
great.
him. Now, I fall back on Jim McKay's father, as I always do, who
I
said
didn't know
that
you fell back on Jim McKay's father.
well, I always
ever.
do. Jim McKay years ago quoted his father. Remember Jim McKay from
No,
Wide World of Sports?
No,
He
I
said
have
that
no
his-
idea who that is.
he
I've
used
never
to
heard
host-
Fall
him.
back on him.
He used
Or
to
his
say-
father.
He used to say that my father always said that our greatest fears and our greatest hopes and our worst fears are seldom realized.
Mm.
And I believe that that's the case with AI, that we're not going to have a cure for cancer in 5 years, but we're also not going to, all be killed.
That's my great hope too.
Nate sounds much less convinced than you are of
Now, but
Jim McKay's father's prediction.
Well, yes, but
Well, he said seldom.
he wrote a
I do
book.
think it's a fair
Seldom
guess,
doesn't mean
yeah.
never.
Doesn't mean never.
But you seem to be you seem to believe this is a real threat and that it's not, it's better than 1% chance if you had to
Oh,
put a
yeah.
number on it.
Much more than 1%.
But you have
yeah.
no idea how long it's going to take. It'd take 5 months or 50 years.
I think at this point, I would be pretty surprised if it was 5 months, and I would be pretty surprised if it was 50 years. I'd give you like 2 to 20 as like a somewhat narrower range.
Not that narrow of a range.
And you
if
don't-
I'm
Not a narrow
being
range.
honest.
You
No,
don't
no.
believe we're going to put the appropriate guardrails that we need to do.
If you sort of look at the field of people trying to make this go well, there's 2 broad categories. I'm simplifying this a bit, but there's 2 broad categories. One is called interpretability research, which is trying to figure out what the heck is going on inside the AIs. One is called evaluations, which is trying to figure out how capable these AIs are, how dangerous these AIs are. If someone was building a nuclear power plant, and you were like, hey, I heard this uranium stuff can give us energy, but also could melt down and be a big problem. Why do you think this nuclear power plant you're building is going to be fine? And they were like, well, we have 2 teams working on the nuclear power plant, one of which is trying to figure out what the hell is going on inside it, and the other which is trying to measure whether it's currently exploding. You might be like, gosh, those guys don't sound close to doing this job right.
Yeah.
That's not what it sounds like. What it sounds like when you're close is someone being like, well, we know all of the, decay pathways. We have all of these, ideas about if it starts getting too hot, the water will boil off, which will cool it down. We're not in that world. We're nowhere near close on this stuff. And, the machines are talking. We figured out how to grow machines to be smarter and smarter. We don't understand how they're working. They have these behaviors nobody wanted. It seems to me like the obvious, basic, default part, like way the story goes. Like if you were reading in the genre of history book, not in the genre of science fiction, but just the genre of history book of like, then the scientists figured out how to like grow the power of this thing larger and larger while not understanding how it worked. And, when asked like about the safety precautions, they were like, well, we're trying to measure it and understand its properties while continuing to grow it more and more powerful. In the genre of history, that stuff usually goes wrong.
Yeah, it does not sound good from what the way that you are describing it does not sound promising at all. And I also think, knowing nothing about this, is that it also seems to just completely go against human nature. Like we just usually do the thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'd have to internalize your prediction. It's very hard for human beings. You saw the movie Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Where the movie was Scarlett Johansson? Who was in it? Anyway, but you saw the movie.
Johansson?
I did see the movie.
Yeah, where there's a meteor coming to Earth that's going to kill everybody, and a large part of the population just refused to believe it and refused to put the resources necessary, because you have to accept this doomsday scenario. It's very hard to do.
Why are you calling her Scarlett Johansson?
Because that's her name, Scarlett Johansson. Or is it Johansson?
I think.
Well, I think it's
Jo.
Jost now. I don't know if she's changed her name officially or not. But
I've never heard it pronounced like that.
maybe, okay, Scarlett Johansson. So we have to believe what you're saying is true.
You're saying
before
we're
we
in
do any.
denial that we.
Well, I'm saying denial is could be the thing that keeps us from implementing what needs to be implemented
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for to avoid this worst.
I also think we have evidence that supports Nate's theory, which is like just look at like social media, look at like TikTok, for example, and its effect on like I don't know teenage girls. Is
Yeah.
that
We just plow right ahead.
Well,
And
Yeah.
we're like,
I-
whoops.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's you plow right ahead, and then you're like, oh shit.
And this is how humans usually do stuff. And usually it works fine. You know, you have chemists or you have alchemists who poison themselves with mercury. You know, you have Marie Curie who studies the glowing rocks, dies of cancer, and then, you know,
Wait, now
after
you're
this,
not
you have-
busting his balls at his pronunciation of Marie Curie.
Marie Curie's
I
fine.
have a strong book accent.
It's Marie Curie, not Curie.
Marie Curie. Sorry,
Marie
had the
Curie.
emphasis on the wrong syllable there.
Marie Curie.
Well,
isn't that what
it's
you said?
okay, but if you're going to bust my balls with Scarlett
But
Johansson,
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear Marie
I'll give it to him.
Curie.
I'll give it to him.
he
I
had
had the
Marie
emphasis.
Curie.
I had the emphasis on the wrong syllable. But, you know, she
didn't-
dies of cancer, and then the United States Radium Corporation tells the girls to lick the paintbrushes, the radium girls to lick the paintbrushes, and their jaws fall off. And they're like, whoops, their jaws fell off. Let's maybe not lick the radium paintbrushes anymore. You know, that's how humanity usually approaches
Yeah.
technology. And
Well,
usually that goes fine.
It's after the fact.
Yeah, you know, it
How
sucked.
humanity,
we
not
wait
just
until-
technology,
we wait
everything, right?
We wait until, and then we.
Yeah.
Right. We learn the second, maybe the third time, you know?
Yes.
Part of the issue with AI is you don't get second shots. It's not harder than all the other problems. It's not harder than figuring out how to turn lead into gold, which we've done. It's not harder than figuring out that, you know, radiation is dangerous. It's just if we, you know, make really, really smart AIs and then realize they're doing the wrong thing, it'll be too late. You don't get the second try. That's what makes this problem really hard.
I do want to talk a little bit about what you had said, and I didn't expect to go in this direction, but you talked about going to other planets.
Yeah.
Are you like on Team Musk in terms of Mars?
I think Musk has done a lot of damage in the AI space. I don't really think. I think if Mars was going to be really useful for the human race, it would be useful by giving like a new regime where people could try a whole new type of governance. Like America was in some sense one of the last times that people were like, let's try a radically new form of government. And that went great. That was cool. Right? I think we can probably do better if we experiment again. And, you know, could we do those experiments on Earth? Yeah. Maybe no
Well,
country.
the nice
will
thing
ever let
about
people
Earth
do
is we
those.
can breathe on Earth,
Yeah.
unlike most of these other planets, or all of these other planets.
Yeah, the air is nice. I think it would be really quite the condemnation of Earth bureaucracy if it was easier to try new government experiments in places with no air than on our home planet.
Is it
But-
possible that we won't need air at some point?
Yeah, you know, I think I think it's technologically possible to travel the stars, and you know, whether we'll get there. Like I think humanity should shoot for that in the future. I think there's a lot of possible.
What do you mean travel the stars? What is
Well,
that?
you can't travel to a star; it's too hot.
You can travel between stars.
Okay,
We're
you
pretty
mean
close to the sun.
planets? The planets that orbit the stars.
Maybe you build your own little you know,
Space
habitats around the stars. You know,
All right. All right.
I think it's technologically possible to, and you know, maybe
Have you read Project Hail Mary, by the way?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
How long does it
Well, you
take?
should put that on your reading list
Yeah, maybe I should.
if you're into
heard-
hard sci-fi. Anyway, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted.
How do you get to the stars? Like what?
Well, you know, one way to do it is to automate the process of technological innovation and development, and then be like, build me the fastest possible vessel that can get there. You know, you're not going to exceed light speed, but you know, how close can you get? Well, who knows? You know, and also if you've figured out the technology to sort of synthesize things on that distant planet, you don't need to send, you know, the people in their meat suits. Maybe you can, you know, in the big bags of flesh, you know, you could maybe send much smaller ships that can go much faster, and that they could then like use the energy and the resources on the other side to, you know, build molecule by molecule copies of whatever you want to send over there. And then the philosophers can debate all the time about whether that molecule by molecule copy over there is really you. And maybe the you on Earth is like, obviously not. And the you that's over there is like, obviously yes. And then, due to the light speed limitations, you can bicker about it every 4 years or whatever. But, this stuff looks technologically possible.
It also sounds so insane.
Yeah, that's, there's,
But maybe that's just me. I mean, maybe I'm limited in what I can
I'm with
imagine.
Periel. I don't think we're traveling too far beyond Earth.
I mean, my guess is we aren't either, to be clear. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying it looks possible under the laws of physics. And it's the sort of thing that if we, if humanity survived 1 million years, do you really expect we'd still be sort of like in
Well, that's the
suits?
big question.
Yeah.
Surviving 1 million. You don't seem to think we're going to survive
That's
to
right.
2040
That's why I think we're not going to the stars. That's right.
because we
But,
have time limitations.
Yeah, because we have killing ourselves limitations.
Well,
We're too
but so your
suicidal.
crusade, if I may use that term, is to, and this book, in addition to, I'm sure you're getting nice income as a bestseller, but is to warn people and to affect change.
Yeah, we put all the money towards advertising because we don't care about it.
Now, who else are you guys? You and your and who's your co-writer?
Eliezer Yudkowsky.
Who's more pessimistic of the two?
I'm not sure which of us thinks the situation looks more dire. I would say, again, the book title does start with if,
Mm-hmm.
and
As opposed to when.
that's right.
Okay.
And a lot of people like tossing their numbers around of what's the chance we all die here, and I'm like, look, it's still up to us.
Well, is it
in a
if
big
like
sense.
if I get anxiety before my cruise ship gig kind of if, or where it's a virtual certainty, or a if where you really think we have a decent shot of avoiding this?
I think this is a place where I'm more optimistic than many. We're sort of in this crazy situation where I'm like, it looks to me like this tech is just on track to kill us all for reasons X, Y, and Z, and it looks like we're not close to doing it right for these reasons. And then the people in the field, the people building this stuff, are like, oh, don't listen to that crazy guy. This is only 10 to 20% chance likely to kill literally everybody, right? And it's like it's like
That's the number I've heard people say. Like, who's that guy I saw on YouTube? He's like a big AI guru. I forgot his name, but he put it at 10 to 20% chance.
Yeah, these are the numbers that the optimists pass around, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's like you have people building an airplane, and I'm like, hey,
I mean, that's still a pretty heavy number.
it's a huge number. Yeah, if I'm like, hey, this airplane has no landing gear, maybe don't fly in it. It's going to crash. And the people building the airplane, selling the tickets, are like, don't listen to that crazy doomer. He's right, the airplane has no landing gear, but we're going to build landing gear on the fly. Don't listen to him about how it's, we don't have the materials. We think we're going to do it. We think there's a 70 to 90% chance, 80 to 90% chance that we build the landing gear on the fly, all aboard, right? Like,
That's even more insane.
it's nuts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so, like, yeah, we're rushing ahead right now. And people are like, oh, maybe we'll never change. But, like, the world leaders, everyone in the field knows that there's, like, a huge, insane chance this kills us all. Our world leaders are like, oh, it's just chatbots. The chatbots are dumb. What's going to happen?
Jesus Christ. I mean, what are the chances that you would get on a plane with what Nate just described?
Obviously, I would not.
0, right?
Yeah.
And nobody would.
Yeah, you don't get on that plane. And if they're then like, I'm loading up your friends and you...
I
against
also
your
don't
will-
fly Spirit. If Noam were here, Noam I would suspect would be optimistic and think that you're a crazy doomsayer if he were here.
But he's not. He's saying that he keeps saying that it starts with if.
Yes, but he's saying that 10 to 20% of this happening is with the optimists, and that's still a pretty heavy percentage.
Yeah.
That is what the optimists are saying, right? But these are all numbers about, like, if we rush ahead, And people are like, oh, well, definitely going to rush ahead. And I'm like, people in the field realize how dangerous this stuff is. everybody else hasn't really realized how dangerous this stuff is
Yeah,
yet.
it's really true though. He's right because like even when you think about like all of those like Silicon Valley guys and like they all send their kids to like these private schools that have no screens. None of them are allowed to touch screens.
But that's a different point.
It's a different point, but it's the same thing. He's saying that everybody in the industry knows, nobody else knows because they just don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know. What other than this weird synthesizing virus thing, like what's like a couple of other options of like how we all go down?
The one that's like really easy to visualize, people are already talking about, let's build the automated factories that produce robots that can build more automated factories and that can do the mining, right? If that loop ever closes, you have made what's essentially a new species. It's like a weird mechanical species that has like a robot phase of its life cycle and a factory phase of its life cycle.
A mecha species.
A mecha species, yeah. And then, that could outcompete us just like we've been outcompeted by all sorts of other species before, if it sort of is, pursuing its own strange ends. That's sort of like people are literally trying to do that, and we'll see if they succeed,
How much anxiety is this giving you on a day-to-day basis, if any? You seem like a calm guy, and you said you were from Vermont. Those people are generally pretty even-keeled.
Yeah, I'm even-keeled. I figured this out in 2012, and I was like, oh man, humans just don't seem like the sort of creatures to figure this out without learning it the hard way. We're probably going to die. But I'm going to do my best because, it seems like this place is worth fighting for. And then I do my best, and I don't tie myself up in knots about it.
Who else is the big Paul Revere alarm sounder in this? You and your co-writer are the leading the charge, or who is there any other big names in the apocalyptic prophecy business?
I mean, in some sense, it's like half the field right now. It's
Altman.
So Altman the other day, like Altman has writing from before he started OpenAI, where he says this is, one of the biggest risks to humanity and could wipe us all out. And then he has been saying that less since he has been trying to raise a lot of money and, talk to Congress or whatever. But just a couple weeks ago, he was pressed by a reporter. Do you still believe this? Do you still believe, there's at least a 2%-ish risk this kills us all? And
he says
like,
2%.
Yeah.
Well, he's a super optimist then.
Super optimistic. Yeah.
Oh, he's also trying to raise like trillions of dollars, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I was also being a bit, this is a bit facetious here. 2% is still like that's
considering
that's huge optimism.
Yeah.
Like that's if
you wouldn't get on a plane if it was a 2% chance of crashing.
Yeah, and if the engineers, again, if the engineers are bickering over the numbers and one's like, oh no, it's just 2%, that means he's acknowledging there's like you shouldn't take that as like a real statistical number. Someone who's saying, no, the plane isn't going to go down, or no, the bridge isn't going to go down. They're talking about the materials. They're talking about their knowledge of the system, the backups, the statistics from when they've done very similar things before. If some engineer is like, I don't know, maybe 2% it goes down, that means they don't know what the heck they're doing.
It also means that the number's probably not 2%.
The number's made up and probably not 2%. Yeah. But, Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, who won the Nobel Prize.
Maybe that's the guy that said 20% that I saw on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's like an older white-haired dude.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, but it could have also been Yoshua Bengio, one of the other.
I would remember that name.
Yeah, these guys, some of the top scientists, won the highest awards in the field. They're like, oh yeah, big chance this kills us all, right? The guys running the labs. We've discussed Sam Altman, but Dario Amodei runs Anthropic, Elon Musk running XAI. They're like, oh yeah, 10, 20, 25%, right?
What do they care? They got their fucking their bunkers.
I don't think a bunker helps when an AI decides it needs all of the sunlight falling on the planet for its own purposes.
Jesus Christ!
You're scaring Periel.
Well, you pronounced my name weird too just now.
Periel?
Yeah.
Oh,
emphasis on the wrong syllable.
That's not even a real name. Your mother made it up.
Periel.
Okay. You have any other questions?
No, I don't. It's been illuminating though. And
what?
I don't know. I just remembered that tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Don't at the family dinner bring any of this shit.
Absolutely start the trend. We need more conversation on this. That's how you get out of this. Is more people realize just how crazy the situation.
Well, I'll write my congressman or whatever. What would you suggest we do as us humble non-tech people? We're not in the field. We can't affect change directly, but maybe there's something we can do other than be nervous about it.
I do think writing congress members helps, I've actually
Really?
spoken to a number of people in Congress who are worried and feel like they can't talk about it because, there's, they don't want to piss off the super PACs from big tech, or they feel like they'll sound too weird. And just a few constituents, we're starting to see people talk about it now. Often I think that's downstream of a few constituents calling and saying, I'm worried about this.
Now, what percentage, since we're talking about percentages, that you would really write your congressperson about this?
Well, 2% seems like enough. I mean, now I'm 56, so I'm not as nervous as somebody that's 20 that's starting out in life would be.
I would say
Beca-
that there's a 0% chance that you're going to write your congressperson.
I don't-
We have a webpage
who's
that
that-
makes
who's
it
my-
really easy to call. If anyonebuildsit.com/act. We just try to make it as easy as possible.
Where can people find all of this information and find you?
Yeah, you can just we have a website, ifanyonebuildsit.com, or if you just Google the book title, it's memorable. If anyone builds it, everyone dies.
Well, even if you think this guy's just a crazy doomsayer, it's certainly worth, worth caution.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong with caution.
No,
When the
I'm
optimists
with
are-
you.
yeah.
I think that everything you're saying, other than flying to the stars, sounds
You kind of
pretty-
lost her at flying to the stars.
No, but the rest of it sounds really legit.
Yeah, well,
Well, thank you for coming. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. Why Superhuman AI would kill us all.
glad we're having the conversation.
What's that?
Glad we're having the conversation. That's
And
what I think helps.
for some light, fun reading, and go to ifanyonebuildsit.com.
The book ends on a hopeful note.
Okay, good. Every book should have a happy ending. Thank you for coming, Nate Soares.
Sorries.
That's you're from Argentina or something like that.
It's Portuguese.
Portuguese. Okay.
Italian.
Yeah, well, I only do one accent.
It was romance.
Thank you so much. Podcast at comedyseller.com for comments and questions and suggestions. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Farewell.